Now, by starting this new video blog review series, Super Zombie Review Man, it wouldn't be right then to kick it off with anything other than the first zombie film ever made. Now, I realize that there have been zombie films before this, but this was the first true zombie film, where we had zombies portrayed as dead people rising from the grave to seek the flesh of the living. I realize there were voodoo-style zombie films before this. I'm talking about the zombie genre where we have corpses eating humans. That's the zombie genre we're covering here today. And with that, let's get on with a review for the 1968 groundbreaking classic, George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead. So for all you kids nowadays that give no respect to the zombie movies of old and only seem to enjoy running zombies in their movies, let me just say that without old films like this, especially this one because this is the one that started it all, you would have no running zombies. We would have no Walking Dead, no World War Z, and none of the current zombie stuff going on right now. Night of the Living Dead set the whole zombie wave off, and the horror genre just hasn't been the same since. On a small-ass budget of just around $114,000, George Romero and a small team of his friends and colleagues set up shop in their hometown of Pittsburgh to film a black and white romp about people boarding themselves up in a house that happens to be surrounded by dead and rotting cannibals. That's the gist of the film, at least in a nutshell. Filming commenced in 1967, and the film was released in 1968. And in an age of movies that were gradually all becoming products of Technicolor, a film like this releasing in black and white was simply another rock in the road for Romero and his team. I mean, first, no one had ever seen violence like this portrayed in a horror film before. And for closed-minded audiences of 1968, a black and white low-budget movie was just the icing on the cake as to why they shouldn't go and see it. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's review the film. The film begins ominously in a cemetery in broad daylight. There's some overcast kind of weather going on as these two siblings head over to visit the gravesite of their dead mother, when after a few minutes of somewhat awkwardly written yet awesome dialogue, boom, the first zombie shows up. No spoilers here, but let's just say the sister ends up in the cemetery by herself, and soon finds herself trudging through the woods until she comes upon an old white farmhouse sitting in a clearing down the road. She's kind of an annoying character for the first hour or so of the film. Well, not kinda. She's really annoying, actually, in my opinion. I don't know if it was her lines or her acting, but something about that chick was the equivalent of nails on the chalkboard for me. But anyways, after coming into contact with some survivors and some people already in the house, the girl finds herself stranded with a band of misfits, openly led by Black Guy Ben. And the reason I emphasized openly led by Black Guy Ben is because this was a huge deal in 1968. You know? A dominant, powerful black male basically becoming the lead in an all-white movie, where he slaps and punches his way to power in the midst of a bunch of crazy white people. That was crazy back then. You have to remember this was the late 60s, so the civil rights movements and all that stuff was still resonating in the culture. And this was a film that pushed buttons in that respect. You go, Romero. Always pushing buttons and making statements. But anyways, I digress. I said that because it's what people say when they change the subject, at least from my experience. I don't really know if saying I digress right there is correct or not. Moving on. By the end of the film, you have a house full of survivors whose numbers have been reduced to half of what it was. Probably less than that, actually. You have a psycho white chick and a superhero black dude. You have a giant old farmhouse surrounded by 300 reanimated corpses, and a fat zombie, and a naked chick zombie, among other weird shit in the film. Fucking weird. But what I like most about it is its ambiguous ending. The movie did something many other films were starting to do in the late 60s, and continuing through to today. This film had an ending that didn't resolve anything. Like I said, no spoilers here, but the ending of this film is ambiguous as shit. Audiences crave a solution by the end of a movie. They crave resolution and finality and endings where the heroes win and the bad guys get defeated and everything is happy and jolly and la 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 la. No. Night of the Living Dead offered no resolution and gave absolutely no comfort to the audiences of 1968. And I'm sure little kids at the drive-ins across the country didn't sleep for weeks after they saw Night of the Living Dead. Kind of what Jaws did for beachgoers in the 70s. That's what this film did for kids in the 60s. So the movie may be low budget, even though personally if I had $114,000 I'd feel rich as shit and can make as many movies as I wanted to. Continuing. The acting is mad good here and there. Black Guy Ben was the film's strong point for sure. The dialogue and writing could have been polished up a little. The camera angles and setups were interesting, the pacing was decent. So all in all, production-wise, the film is good. Very good. By today's standards, I know you kids probably find the movie a little tame, a little lame at times, but give respect where respect is required. And Night of the Living Dead deserves that respect. Because without Night of the Living Dead, I would never have my favorite zombie movies of all time. Zombie, Day of the Dead, Return of the Living Dead, etc. Oh, and did I mention, on top of all the shit Romero had to deal with in getting this film made, the distributors made an error with the legal blah 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 of the film once Romero handed it over, and it ended up shooting the film off into public domain territory. So Romero and his team saw little to no money off the damn thing, since everyone and their mother could release it with no dues owed. To anybody at the studio or to him or his team, shitty for them indeed. Those trends continuing today, you can watch the damn thing for free anywhere, anytime. Bad luck for Night, I suppose. The film has grossed so much money, especially when you adjust it for inflation for today's standards. But no one really saw any of that shit. So mishaps happen, I guess. It's kinda added to the folklore of Night of the Living Dead. But moving on. I like and enjoy the film. Is it my favorite zombie movie? No. Is it even close? No. I don't even watch it, but more than once every couple years, because I find so many other zombie flicks to just be better on every level. And that's no disrespect to this film. I just don't think this is the epitome of zombie flicks. And I know most of the zombie community will probably want to tar and feather me for this, but it is what it is, folks. And I do prefer Savini's remake over this film. It just did what this film did better, in my opinion. I'm gonna take some flogging for that comment, too. But anyways, as I have said, the film deserves a lot of respect for what it did for zombies and horror overall. The movie was well made considering the hoops they had to jump through and the small amount of money they had to make this film. It's in black and white, which was a nice little middle finger to the people's Technicolor expectations back then, and the list goes on and on. You should just watch the damn thing. You might enjoy it. All in all, I'd say this zombie movie, Night of the Living Dead, deserves a 7 out of 10. And that may come as a shock to many of you, but realize I have to rate these films as films, and like I said, there are other zombie films I find to be better than this one. And since reviews are opinions in themselves, it is my opinion that, out of 10, this film deserves no less than a 7. It is what it is. I'm not hating on the film. I'm sure many of you are now going to try and say that I am, but you're missing the point of reviewing if you think that. So, Night of the Living Dead, have you seen it, and what did you think about it? What was your take on the film? Comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later.